The new Champion Kassadin is absolutely broken. Yes, I say it right now. He is in the right hands way too strong. And if you guys are a mid lane main and you're not abusing Kassadin while he's not getting permabanned right now, then you are a fool. Hey, what's up guys, Darkbreaker here and welcome to today's tier list. It's gonna be for patch 3.3a and it's basically an updated version of the 3.31 I've made recently. I have a lot of games in this season already or on this new patch. Made it to Challenger with like more than 200 games and we are within the top 10 leaderboard of the Legend queue. I think by now unofficially, we are rank 1 because I have the highest points and no one is finding as a Vanquisher. But basically, why should you guys watch this video? Why should you guys watch the entire thing and listen to this guy's opinion? Because we have a 9k average KDA with over 73% win rate in the solo queue mode. I think I have a pretty good idea about what's good in the current meta and what's working. So you guys can use this as an orientation. Remember, this is an orientation, it's my opinion, it's subjective. I try to give you guys my personal opinion about what's good. You don't have to listen to it, but you can listen to it as an orientation. Make sure, if you guys are new to the channel or you guys don't want to miss out on a bunch of content on patch 3.3a. Cyan and Samira are coming out in like 3 weeks, so that's gonna be exciting. And did you guys saw the leaks about 3.4? We have Yone, Gwen, Warwick, and what was the other pick? Wait, oh shit. Wait a second. What was the other? Vex. Oh, Vex is also coming. So definitely make sure to subscribe and leave a like if you guys enjoyed this tier list. And enough talking, let's get started. By the way, quick question. What do you guys think is the hot pick or one of the best picks in the meta right now in your opinion? What is underrated and what's really broken? You guys love the title. By the way, Kassadin is out. Kassadin is out. We've updated the tier list with Kassadin. So let's get started with the Baron lane tier list. For you guys who are not familiar with what the star means, star basically just means this champion got either moved within the tier list or they got changed with the recent patch notes. So if they got buffed or nerfed, I put the star on them so you guys know, okay, this champion got changed on 3.3a, or I moved them up or down within the tier list in comparison to before. So you guys can see what are the changes, because some people are like, there are no changes. I mean, there's obviously patches usually don't bring huge changes. Like the meta, unless it's like insane amount of changes, like huge meta change, the tier list stays around the same, but there are like a few champions here and there that are moving up and down. So Riot doesn't make big changes. They go for small changes to improve the game here and there. So therefore, there are only slight changes within the tier list. Obviously, there are not big changes. But yeah, let's get started with the Baron lane tier list. Jax, I've moved them up in comparison to before. This champion is just so strong right now in the current meta. I think the only hard matchup he has is probably Fiora is the hardest matchup, and then maybe Jace, but you outscale Jace as well. But otherwise, Jax is just one of the best late game scaling champions. He is super strong from the get-go. A lot of people have been using Grasp on Jax right now. So that seems to be very good on Jax because it makes his early game better. You can also use Conqueror obviously, but Grasp Jax is just a very safe lane. Makes his early game better since he has a pretty weak early game against a lot of matchups. And then once you get scaling, you are probably the best split pusher in the side lane. If you are unattended for a few seconds, with Demolish, the turret is gone immediately. So if your teammates are fighting for the dragon, for example, and you think, okay, if I join that team fight, I'm losing anyways. As a Jax, you can go for the turret instead, and with the Demolish, you can just secure the turret super easily. Even before the dragon, you might be able, you kill someone solo, you might be able to get the turret before the dragon even spawns. So Jax, one of the best split pushers, one of the best scaling champions, becomes a 1vs9 hyper carry beast in teamfights as well. The only downside is that against certain team comps that have a lot of crowd control, he can struggle. But overall, he's still a very good team fighter in comparison to like a Fiora, who is super weak in team fights in comparison to Jax. Jace got buffed. They buffed the first ability, and honestly, I think the Heartbreaker changes on Jace aren't that bad. In the melee form, he still gets the resistance, and the buff on the first ability makes his poking insane, and he has one of the best laning phases in the game. Super strong against most matchups, very safe first pick or blind pick into a bunch of champions, because he doesn't really get hard countered. Let me think, what's even the hardest matchup for Jace in the Baron lane? I guess Jax outscales, but I've played against Jax in my recent video on Jace, and it was doable. It was pretty doable. So maybe a Camille, a late game Camille is very hard to deal with, or maybe even a Riven, but if you play it well against Riven, you can do fine as well. Renekton also received a buff, and yeah, Renekton received the buff. So I just put the change. He didn't change in the tier. Like, he was already very strong in my opinion. One of the best laners, super strong in team fights and tanky as well. He is a complete package, really, really good. So stays S+ in my opinion. Riven is still very good. She got nerfed or got changed slightly in 3.3, but still remains one of the best Baron laners. Super strong in team fights. Very good 1vs1 champion. Camille, one of the safest Baron laners in the game. Super strong laning phase with the second ability max. You just poke them out, and then you have insane split push capabilities, good catch potential with the ultimate, and your ultimate is very good in teamfights as well to catch people off guard. She's really good because of her high mobility, so she can roam across the map, and then you try to pick off people with the ultimate. So I'm a big fan of Camille. She is one of my go-to Baron laners. What did I play the most? I think I've played Camille, Riven, Renekton, and Jax the most in my push to Challenger. In the solo mode, I am playing mostly jungle, but whenever I get filled into Baron lane, I would opt for one of those champions. Jax, if you guys want an insane split pusher. Riven, if you guys want a more teamfight orientated champion who is not that tanky, so you kind of need a tanky frontline like a support maybe or jungler. Renekton, if you guys want a strong laner who's also tanky, for example. Set, talking about the tanky and strong teamfight, Set very good in the lane as well, and then on top of that he has amazing teamfight. He is super tanky, so if you guys want a brawler that is super tanky, then Set is the go-to. He has really good playmaking potential with the third ability, with the ultimate, and the second ability does true damage and gives him a huge shield. Darius has been used, for example, by the former rank 1 or the top 1 Darius player was rank 1 in the leaderboard, spamming Darius. He's a very good teamfighting champion, which fits in the meta right now, where everyone wants to fight for the elemental dragons. He has very good carry potential, especially once he gets a reset. Teamfighting wise, he has probably one of the best carry potentials as a Baron laner, even if you are behind. And talking about carry potential in teamfight and the elemental dragon, that's one of the reasons I actually decided to move on Fiora. She is one of the best early game laning duelist in the game. She is very good split pusher, but the issue is she is not that amazing in teamfights, and she doesn't have the same carry potential in teamfights like the other champions. I just feel like she kind of struggles, especially since everyone wants to go for the dragon fight, and she doesn't split push as quickly as a Jax, for example, and Jax is just the better team fighter as well. So I'm putting her strong S tier, but I don't think she is S+ anymore. Plus, very high skill ceiling. Garen, super safe laner, strong, tanky, very beginner friendly. Same for Wukong, very strong lane, super tanky, good sustain, amazing team fighter. Malphite, good in team fights, decent in the lane, but gets outscaled super hard in the lane, so you want to force the dragon and you want to win it, but if you don't win it, like you extra roam, for example, like let's say you play against the Jax, you extra roam for the dragon, and it's a 5 vs 4, and somehow you don't end up winning it, the Jax just takes over your takes the turret, gets the 2k gold lead over you, and then you can't hold him anymore. So that's, for example, a scenario that can happen a lot of times in ranked games, because even if you roam and you get the man advantage at the first objective, it doesn't guarantee that you will win the team fight, and it also doesn't guarantee that you will secure the objective. So that's kind of the downside of, wow, I play Malphite, I need and I want that first objective, and I extra roam for it, and then I get punished for it. Plus, you fall off a lot against a bunch of Baron laners, and my phrases. In solo queue, you don't want to go for hard tanks because you can't rely on your teammates to do damage, and I rather go for on a bruiser that is tanky and can carry games than a Malphite that is only tanky and relies too much on the teammates to carry the game. Because you can go 8-0 on a Malphite, it doesn't matter, because if you have really bad teammates, you can carry the game. Unlike a Jax, if you are 8-0 on a Jax, you can actually carry the game 1 vs 9, unlike the Malphite. So that's why I'm not the biggest fan of tanks in solo queue. Next one, Aurelia. High skill ceiling champion, great duelist, good carry potential in team fights. Gragas is a very safe option, can be played as AP and as tank. Super solid Baron laner. Shen got kinda nerfed, but I still think he is S tier. He is a very decent laner. He has the global ultimate to join team fights and make plays happen, so that's pretty good. Downside is he gets outscaled, and like I said, you are a tank. You rely on your teammates to do later in the end game or in the late game team fights damage. So that's the downside of playing tanks. So yes, you have the utility, you have the global ultimate, but if your teammates are trash, then you ain't gonna win. It doesn't matter. You're not gonna win if your teammates are bad when you're playing a tank, no matter what. Like, there are maybe a few cases where you can carry and you still end up winning, but if you have like a really bad ADC, you're probably not gonna win as a fat Shen if the enemy ADC is super fat, for example. Like, if you're playing against Vayne Lulu and Vayne is super fat and you are fat, you're not gonna win the game. You're just not gonna win the game because the enemy Vayne is just gonna carry the game. Graves, a solid Baron lane split pusher that needs to farm a lot. He has very insane scaling though, so once you get items, you become such an absolute unstoppable split push beast. So that's why I put him S tier. Nasus got nerfed, and I think with the elemental rifts right now, where it's so important to join for dragons, Nasus is kind of counterproductive, and you can't stack as easily as before with the cooldown nerf on the first ability. He's still one of the best scaling champions if he gets to scale, and if your teammates are not inting on the bot side, then you have some time to farm up, and then you can become a unstoppable carry beast. But the downside is obviously on those champions that you might get kited in team fights against crowd control, or if they have a lot of mobility. Teemo is an insanely strong early game champion that is really squishy in team fights though, but with the new shroom he is pretty decent, and once you get enough items and people are running into your shrooms and you can set up shrooms with objectives, then he can actually just, people can't even come close to the objective because they will get chunked down by the shroom so hard. The downside is you kind of need, like, from behind Teemo doesn't work as well because you need the advantage, like the map advantage on the map and the vision advantage to set up the shrooms. Nautilus, a very solid Baron laner, super tanky, good crowd control. Mundo, decent Baron laner. He's actually not a bad duelist, and he's super tanky. So if you guys want to play a meat shield that can just run down people, then go for Mundo. Downside is everyone's just gonna go anti-heal plus Divine Sundra. I don't think you're ever winning against, for example, Darius beats you, Camille beats you, Jax beats you, Fiora beats you. So a lot of split pushers are just gonna outscale you, so that's the downside. He can be pretty useful though. If you get ahead, you become a really tanky frontline that is hard to kill. Downside, like I said, you rely on your teammates to do damage. You are the meat shield. If your bot lane is shit, you're not gonna win the game. Majority of the time. Some games you can carry, but some other games you're probably not gonna carry. Akali, A tier because she is not that strong in the early game. In the laning phase, she struggles against a lot of champions. In the Baron lane matchup, she becomes a very strong teamfight champion though. She has super strong carry potential as a hard assassin, doing tons of damage, and is very good in teamfights. Jarvan, super decent laner, provides a lot of utility in teamfights because he's so tanky. Downside, you always rely on your teammates to do the main damage. Akshan, actually, with Kraken Slap, pretty strong in the early game. One of the best lane bullies in the game, but I think he fits better in the mid lane because a lot of matchups you will get outscaled on Akshan and they will just always dive you, or like a Camille would just outscale you so hard, and then you move to the lane, ultimate comes, you are dead no matter what. And as a ranged champion, there's the problem that the enemy jungler can just camp you, and then you have a big problem, and you can't do anything anymore. Diana, solid laner, strong in teamfights. If you guys want a champion that is really good in teamfights and has magic damage as a Baron laner, then Diana is a good choice. Same for Cannon. Cannon is also pretty strong in the early game laning phase because of his range advantage. Decent in teamfights, but in the side lane matchup gets outscaled by a lot of champions. Pantheon, an early snowballing champion that relies on getting hits and win the early game matchup, but you get outscaled and you fall behind so hard. Olaf is very good against certain team comps if they rely on too much crowd control and if they're tanky, because he has true damage and the ultimate can ignore crowd control. But in the Baron lane matchup, you are kinda a cheesy pick because you rely on winning early game and you get kinda outscaled in the Baron lane matchup by a lot of champions, in the 1v1 at least. Tryndamere actually, I think the main issue with Tryndamere is he's kind of unreliable and you need to snowball and need to scale. But if you get to scale and if you face a team comp that doesn't have too much crowd control, Tryndamere can become a beast. Like 3 items Tryndamere, you just run people down 1 vs 1. Kayle, a super scaling champion, very weak in the early game and very easy to punish and dive. So that's one of the issues I see on Kayle, and she needs... You need the max passive to be useful, and you need items. You need 3-4 items, and you need the passive to be maximized to be strong. Singed is very good teamfighting champion that skates like a truck, but early game really weak, so he's pretty punishable by a lot of champions. Vayne, Lucian can be good against certain matchups, and if you have jungle cover, because if you get camped, you are doomed and you can't do anything anymore, and you just fall behind completely. But yeah, that's for the Baron lane tier list, and let's move on to jungle. I'm just saying, I'm Vanquisher jungler solo queue mode. I'm a chat jungler on solo. Listen to my opinion when it comes to jungle and Baron. That's what I can say. Trust me on this one. My go-to junglers are in this mode Shyvana, Olaf, Camille, Wukong, Riven. Those are my go-to pool. Ascension is also pretty good. Like, these champions in S+, they are on their own very good hard carry champions, and I'm gonna talk about their pros and cons. Shyvana is one of the best scaling champions in the game right now as a jungler. She can farm up so much, get the evolved, and then she becomes a 1 vs 9 hyper carry beast. She has very quick jungle clear speed, and she can farm a lot, get tons of gold, and then become 1 vs 9 tanky beast monster. The downside is she is slow paced in the early game, and she isn't an insane ganker in the early game. So if you play against a high fast paced jungler like a Lee Sin or Kha'Zix or Evelynn, the downside is that they snowball the map too quickly while you're still farming. So that's why I always ban Lee Sin when I play Shyvana or something. I always ban Lee Sin because people tend to int to good Lee Sin very quickly. Because they just don't respect the Lee Sin that can just permagank them. Just play safe, don't play aggressive, because Lee Sin just comes, gets a free donation kill. The other issue is you kinda rely on your teammates to not int too hard in the early game. Plus, if they're inting, you can't contest the dragon anymore. I mean, you need to go on the other side then and play cross-play, go for the other objective if your teammates are losing. And focus on farming. Main thing is focus on farming, and then you can become a beast. Like, even if your teammates are inting, you can just focus on farming. And once you have enough stacks, you are becoming so strong in teamfights. Olaf, one of the best hyper carry champions definitely in the game. He is absolutely amazing because he has very quick jungle clear speed. His level 3 is super strong. His ganks are subpar. It's like okay. His ganks are okay. It's not like a Lee Sin gank super free or something, but it's decent. His team fighting, he has true damage. He can ignore crowd control. So he's an amazing pick if you play against team comps that rely too much on crowd control for their peeling, like a Lux, like a Senna, Galio, Ramos. You just run all of them down. Or like if I play against hard crowd control team comps and they don't have a lot of mobility, then Olaf is the perfect hyper carry pick. Camille, big fan of her. The thing is, her early game is kind of slow pace, but she has probably one of the best ganks. Like, you just use the ultimate and you can secure kill 100%. So on top of that, you have probably one of the best scalings as well, because the moment you get level 13, you have the 100% true damage. You are so strong in team fights, and you're like two-tapping people with the true damage. High mobility, ganking champion, good scaling, kind of slow pace in the early game. It's not as... Ganking wise, she's better than Shyvana, but farming wise, she is pretty slow in the early game. Wukong, on the other hand, is decent ganker in the early game, especially with the second ability. You can now dash through the walls, so you have better angles and better ganking angles than beforehand. And he's very good in teamfights, especially for dragons. If you guys want a tanky pick that still does a lot of damage, then Wukong is the go-to choice. Riven, a strong 1 vs 9 hyper carry champion, does tons of damage and has tons of mobility. Echo, one of the best scaling champions, does so much damage in the late game. Has the ultimate for revive as well, and has the second ability for AoE hard crowd control. It's like 2-second stun or something. Like, it's insane. If you can land it in team fights, you just win the team fight immediately. The downside is his early game is very slow, so he needs to scale. You don't want to play him against You don't want to play him against a Lee Sin, for example, that's just gonna gank the whole time while you're still focusing on farming, because he's kind of weak in the early game and slow jungle clear. Kha'Zix and Lee Sin both are very strong snowballing champions that can control the map with a high tempo, fast tempo. They're just ganking left and right, snowballing, doing tons of damage, having so much mobility. Kha'Zix, one-shot potential. Lee Sin, one-shot potential. Too much mobility, and he just ganks, and snowballs super hard. Lee Sin, if I was a good Lee Sin, I would probably play Lee Sin non-stop. The issue about Lee Sin is, though, that he falls behind in the late game. To be fair, I've seen... What's his name again? The Nova jungler. Long, even on Lee Sin in the late game, he just carries. Even late game Lee Sin, where he's supposed to fall off, he just carries the teamfight 1 vs 9. So the point doesn't even stand. If you're a good Lee Sin, like Lee Sin has like insane high skill ceiling, and if you're excellent on Lee Sin, you're a one-trick pony Lee Sin, he's probably one of the best snowballing champion in the game. Nautilus, very decent jungle clear speed, amazing ganks. If you guys want a frontliner with tons of crowd control, Nautilus is the go-to pick. I like him. He's really underrated in my opinion. Xin Shao, a strong duelist. If you guys want a tanky champion that does tons of damage, Xin Chao is the go-to pick. Jarvan, one of the best high prio super quick junglers in the game. He is very strong level 2, and he can, like, he has very, very good ganks. His jungle clear speed is pretty solid, and he's super tanky. He has tons of utility, so that's why I put Jarvan S tier. But he obviously doesn't have like the insane 1 vs 9 hyper carry. Isn't the insane 1 vs 9 hyper carry because he doesn't do as much damage like an Olaf or Shyvana. But he's very good. He's still very good. In the early mid game, he does a lot of damage. Jace with the... Oh, wait. Let me put the star because he got buffed. Yeah, good champion. Like, he does a lot of damage. Decent ganks. Kind of falls off in the super late game, but he's still a very strong pick. Morgana, one of the quickest jungle clears. Great utility. Provides a lot of poking damage, but she isn't the typical 1 vs 9 hyper carry champion where you do tons of damage, because she's like more like a poke utility orientated champion. Nunu is very similar to Lee Sin, where you just spam ganking, but the thing is, he is a tank. He provides a lot of utility and is a good frontline, but he doesn't have the same carry potential like a hyper carry champion. Evelynn actually in solo queue becoming one of those champions who I'm thinking might be broken, because every time I see Evelynn, she has the insane ganking potential. She's just snowballing every single game because she has the invisibility where she's just snowballing super hard against solo queue players, especially in solo queue mode. She does tons of damage. She's pretty squishy though, to be fair. Yeah, strong S. Vi, very good jungle clear speed, good ganker, super tanky, does decent amount of damage. Graves kinda slow in the early game, needs to focus on farming, not the greatest ganks, but he has insane scaling, where he does, like, the moment he has 3 items, he becomes an absolute beast, does way too much crit damage. The thing that I don't like about him is that he is so scaling and he needs to focus on farming, and he doesn't even have the greatest jungle clear speed. Aurelia is still a strong hyper carry champion. I just feel like in this meta, a lot of team fights are hard for her to play out. But she, obviously, if you're a good Aurelia, you have insane carry potential on this champion because she has so much sustain. But remember, Black Cleaver, Divine Sunderer, and Death Dance got nerfed. So 2 core items of Aurelia got nerfed. That definitely makes her weaker, but it also applies for a lot of other bruisers. But I don't think it really matters. Okay, next one, Set. Set, decent jungler, not the greatest jungle clear speed, not the greatest ganker, but definitely a strong teamfight champion. Pyke got buffed. Actually, it's a nerf for jungle Pyke because they nerfed the third ability. But Pyke with the insane roaming and playmaking potential, not that bad as a jungler. Jungle clear speed kind of scuffed, but his ganks are really strong. Rengar in the meta is just not that insane right now. I think he's solid. He can snowball games, but a lot of team fights are hard for him because he's like a champion that he is not tanky enough if you want to go for the bruiser build, and if you go for the one-shot build, you're like a champion that really needs to hard commit, and then it's really hard for you to escape team fights. Or you jump in, you have to commit, and then you can't get out anymore. Like the meta is just not that good for him, and he like, the thing is, they nerfed him so much that he just doesn't do as much damage anymore. Gregor's AP jungle is decent pick, good scaling, insane poking damage, and strong team fighting. Early game, decent, not the greatest, but very good scaling and good playmaking potential with the ultimate. This kind of weak in the early game, slow paced, but he does a lot of damage and he has decent carry potential once he gets items. Pantheon, on the other hand, is very strong in the early game, good ganker, can snowball games super hard, but he falls off so hard in teamfights later on. Fiora is a strong duelist in the early game, not the greatest teamfighter and not the greatest ganker, and I don't know. I think if you are a good Fiora, you can still carry, but it's definitely not that easy on a champion with such a short range in teamfights. And teamfights in general are really hard on as a Fiora. Darius, decent champion. The main thing why I put him here is because he has really strong team fight, and his ganks are really not that bad with Protoball and third ability. Diana kind of slow paced in the early games, so she isn't the champion that's gonna gank left and right quickly, no matter what. She needs to farm up, and she has very good team fighting potential with her ultimate, and she does a lot of damage. Jax with the nerfs on the passive are really not that good anymore in the jungle because he has very bad jungle clear speed. So that's why I put him B tier. But he can get going. Like if you get like if you get like 1-2 kills in the early game and then scale, he's still very good scaling champion obviously. But his jungling or his jungle clear speed is very bad. So your farming potential is just crippled by the passive change. Master Key is hit or miss. He can snowball super hard, but he can also be countered very easily, and he is really not that good in the early game. Sin Jungle, kinda cheesy pick, weak jungle clear speed, good ganks though, and good scaling. So the main issue is just his jungle clear speed is not that good, and he is, I would say, a champion like a Lee Sin or Kha'Zix can punish him in the jungle. Shen is low jungle clear speed, decent gangster with the taunt. Not the greatest carry potential though. Same for like a champion like Amumu and Ramos. Amumu, slow jungler that is super weak in the early game, and you can punish Amumu very easily because he's so weak in the 1v1, and he is a champion that relies only on the like without the ultimate he can't do anything. So you're always like limited by the ultimate. Like if you don't have the ultimate up, you can't go for any team fights. And he just doesn't have the insane carry potential that I like as a solo queue jungler, for example. Ramos, the main issue that I have on Ramos is he needs some kills in the early game and he needs to snowball. He has very good early game ganks, but his jungle play speed is horrible. So if you fall behind in the early game and you don't get items, you will always have low gold and you rely on your teammates to carry. Like that's the biggest issue about tank junglers. You rely on your teammates to later on carry you, because you will fall off and you will like the other teammates need to carry you. Tryndamere, decent jungle clear, bad ganks, super good scaling though. Mundo, bad jungle clear, bad ganks. That's why I don't like him. Okay, let's move on to mid lane. The new champion Kassadin is absolutely broken. Yes, I say it right now. He is in the right hands way too strong. And if you guys are a mid lane main and you're not abusing Kassadin while he's not getting permabanned right now, then you are a fool, because better abuse him because he's before he's getting nerfed. This champion is busted. He is too easy to play for a late game super godly scaling champion. He has a silence. His third ability does AoE damage, like in I think 80 or 90% slow once you have it fully stacked. And then the ultimate, you just have every 2 seconds you can jump. And if you have 3 stacks in the late game and you jump onto someone, then you jump, silence, third ability, and then if they're not dead, then auto attack, second ability, they are dead. You are one of the most mobile champion in the game with insane godly damage scaling with a silence. Silence! Hello, silence is broken, by the way. Even against champion, even against hard matchups, like AD matchups. Let's say you're playing against Akshan, you're playing against Jace, you're playing against maybe a Pantheon mid lane. Those are hard matchups. If you go fleet footwork, you're still doing fine. Like, it's very easy to go for safe lane on Kassadin, just using third ability or first ability to clear. And just don't int. It's not that hard to not int on Kassadin. I've flat him a few times and he feels too easy and too broken. And I've seen some Kassadins in solo mode that are so cracked. And the main issue is he is so hard to kill. Like, he has too much mobility, and if you go Road of Age, it's so hard to kill you because like, he feels tanky. Like, I don't know why, but he feels tanky. I guess because he has the passive magic shield. Too much mobility, too much damage, too much mobility, too much damage. He's too good. Play him. If you are not stupid, play this champion. Broken. Wait, let me see something. Next one is gonna be Ari. Ari, in my opinion, a very insane playmaking champion. The charm. The charm, if you're good at landing charm, you can solo carry games. You land one charm before a team fight, before an objective, you hit a key champion like say they have a fat vein. You land the charm, you win the game. It's so easy. Like, she has so much mobility in team fights because of her new ultimate right now, so it's very hard to kill this champion. And this ability is broken. Like, you land one single good charm against a diamond player that's scuffed as fuck. He is the 10-0 vein. He like, one person needs to miss position, you just win the game. And she has very good playmaking potential, snowballing on the map, roaming around, catching people with the charm and the ultimate. So this champion, very, very strong and super similar to Kassadin's playstyle. Plus the fact that she is not weak in the early game like a Kassadin. Kassadin isn't even that weak in the early game. He's a very good champion against mages or ranged champions because you can jump onto them, you get the magic shield, you have the silence, and you just jump in, silence, E, and then you just jump out again. It's very easy to trade on Kassadin against mages. Diana, one of the best team fighting champions in the game, does tons of damage, is super strong in team fights. Katarina, I always tell it to you guys, you get one reset, you win the game. This champion is one of the best snowballing champions, and it works like a charm in solo queue, even if you're not a good Katarina. But if you're a good Katarina, you can snowball games so easy. You need one reset, you win the game. You just win the game with one reset because she has so much damage, so much mobility. It's very hard to shut her down, especially in solo queue where everyone is uncoordinated and they are not going to use their crowd control onto you. Katarina solo queue, it doesn't matter which elo. In low elo, very, very free, and even high elo Katarina works. So I always said I've played her recently on my Smurf stream, and I didn't play her in weeks or months, and immediately I get like 15-0 score. Like, this champion is broken for sure. Aurelia, one of the best high skills ceiling champions in the game. If you're good on this champion, your carry potential is insane, and you have immense amount of sustain. Very hard to kill this champion. Does tons of damage. Karma, still one of the best champions in the game. The ultimate is broken in Dragon team fights. A good ultimate in this, like, they're all bunched up, they wanna fight for the Mantle Dragon. You use one good ultimate, tons of damage, they're all getting bunched up and knocked up. Or knocked back. And she has an insane amount of poking damage, so Karma is still broken. Pyke, honestly, after seeing Pyke a few times and playing him more, Pyke's carry potential in solo queue with his roams is very, very good. Like, he has so much playmaking potential in the right hands. Remember, in the right hands, he can be a S tier champion because of his roaming potential, his snowballing, his pick off potential. The downside is that he isn't the typical 1vs9 hyper carry champion. He's more like a playmaking champion that can pick off people and snowball the map super hard. Like, Pyke is so underrated. Like, Pyke is so good. Yasuo got nerfed, and I just feel like even without the nerfs, I feel like he's just S tier because there are too many players that don't know how to pick Yasuo into the right team comp and don't know how to use him correctly. A lot of Yasuo players are just gonna int you down. The main reason I've put him S+ here is because of the people that know how to play him, that are super cracked. Like, if you're cracked on this champion, he's broken as fuck. But he got nerfed, and I see too many Yasuo inters, so might as well put him S tier, because I don't want to see that many Yasuo players that don't know how to play this champion, and there's a reason the O10 Yasuo memes exist, because there are too many players that don't know how to play this champion. Even though 2-3 items Yasuo into the right team comp is cracked. Insane amount of damage and super good carry potential. Galio, strong team fighting champion, good poke, has the ultimate to join team fights. Akali, like I said, in the early game not that good, but in the mid lane she doesn't get punished as hard as in the Baron lane, and she has a lot of decent matchups. Good carry potential in team fights because she has so much damage. Akshan with Kraken Slayer, super strong, one of the best laners in the game, and super good at snowboarding the game, rotating left and right. Does tons of damage in the late game as well with the crit build. Corki also, very good team fighting champion, does tons of damage. Fizz, great assassin with good carry potential and tons of damage. Jace got buffed. Does a lot of damage, good poking damage, good in the lane, is a good lane bully as well. Orianna and Ziggs are both strong utility mages with tons of poking damage, are great in teamfights as well. Singe is still solid in the mid lane into certain matchups. He just pushes the wave, tries to rotate, tries to make plays happen. He's a very good scaling champion that can pick off people. He has very good playmaking potential with the Protobelt Fling, for example. So yeah, he is very good in team fights once you have like 3-4 items. Veigar is one of the best scaling champions. The downside is his early game is pretty weak and he doesn't have priority in the mid lane. He can't really roam that much, but his scaling and his team fighting, if you play front to back and you have a good front line, is very strong. Zed, on the other hand, is more like a playmaking solo queue champion that can snowball in the mid lane with his assassination, and then he can split push, and he's good at killing people in the backline and assassinating them. Yeah, he does tons of damage as well and has a lot of mobility. So in the right hands, if you are proficient on this champion, he is very good in solo queue. Twisted Fate, very good roaming champion that can snowball the game with his ultimate. And the gold card is so good in team fights. And the main thing you want to do as Twisted Fate is picking people off left and right, especially before a team fight. And with Rapid Fire Cannon, you have so much range. Protobelt, Rapid Fire Cannon, gold card. Your catch potential is crazy, especially if you have like a Twisted Fate Camille combo. You can just snowball by catching people. Don't go for straight 5 versus 5 and just keep catching people. And he still has a lot of damage in team fights and poking damage, surprisingly. Lucian is just super cracked, does tons of damage, has a lot of mobility as well. Echo, one of those champions where I realized you guys are intos on this champion. Very weak early game, and that's the main issue. People don't know how to play him, and they're just inting in the laning phase. And then I have an O10 Echo that's flaming me. So yes, he can be good in teamfights. Yes, he is very good scaling champion, and yes, I think he is broken. But majority of Echo players in the mid lane are just trash. So I'd rather not see him being played anymore in the mid lane. So I'm just putting him A tier. Brand, decent poking champion, lack of mobility and lack of roaming. That's the main issue why I put him A tier. But he also struggles against a bunch of matchups because he's so squishy and doesn't have mobility. Aurelion Sol, on the other hand, is pretty weak in the early game. He has very good team fighting potential and he has decent roaming potential, but he is a very hard to play champion, I would say, to make him work. He also has a lot of bad matchups. Same for Annie. Main issue is lack of mobility and lack of roaming in the early game. That's what I don't like. She has good carry potential in teamfights though, with a proto build ultimate, yes. But she has a lot of bad matchups as well. Gragas is a pretty safe champion in the mid lane, super solid at everything, so that's for 8 here. Garen, solid flex pick if you guys want a mid lane champion that is tanky and does AD damage. He is pretty good against melee champions, and is good if you guys already have enough AP damage, so you're just playing a front line. Morgana, main issue I have with this champion is that her wave clear is really not that good in the early game, and she just doesn't do as much damage as I would want to see from a mid lane champion, because she's more like a utility-based champion. But if I want to go for a utility-based champion, I can just go for Karma, and Karma does way more damage and has way better team fighting and utility. I might as well just go Karma. Like, why would I go for a Walmart Karma if I can just play the real deal? Like, that's a question. And if I want a super strong team fighting poking champion, I can also go Orianna, or I can also go Ziggs. Or if I want a super good utility champion as well, I can go for Galio as well. Galio does way more damage, he has better playmaking potential as well, and he has the global ultimate. So why would I go for Morgana? That's the question. Pantheon. Pantheon, like I said, is a super strong early game champion. Against certain range matchups, you want to pick him because you can punish them, and then you can snowball left and right. But, like I said, you fall off in the mid game because he just doesn't have good scalings. Next one is gonna be Ash. I put him B tier. I put her B tier. Oops, my bad. Just to credit like the Brazilians and the Chinese that use Ash in the mid lane and make it work, but it's like a pick that is super situational, and you kind of need the right coordination in high elo to make it work. But yeah, the ultimates are good playmaking potential to catch people, but lack of mobility and really needs a lot of abilities to work. So she gets punished by a lot of champions. Let's for example say Kassadin will shit on you, a Zed will shit on you, Ari, Diana, Aurelia, they will just kill you super freely. Rakan B, because we have seen some AP Rakans at icons, and it worked pretty well. So I just want to credit them and mention Rakan. I don't think it's that amazing, and you shouldn't go for it, but it can work. Cannon, I don't like his wave clear. His wave clear is very bad because you need to commit the third ability to clear waves. So it's very easy to punish a cannon that wants to clear wave, and he has low prio, and his team fighting is honestly not as amazing as you would expect from a 5-man ultimate cannon. Like, I just want, like, if they buffed the cannon ultimate and they made his wave clear better, then I would probably put him like A or S tier. Kale, super weak early game. Works better than in the Baron lane works better than in Baron lane because you don't get punished as hard and you have more freedom to scale, but she is still super weak, bad roaming, and she needs a lot of gold and a lot of time to work. Lux, Seraphine, let's just summarize quickly, and Sona. Sona got nerfed, by the way, so even worse than before. But those champions have really, really, really bad wave clear in the early game. They have no mobility at all, so it's very easy to punish them, and they can't rotate. So like for example, Ari will always push you in, and then she will camp in the bushes, and so if you guys want to help the teammates out, she will just assassinate you, or she will out rotate you and then make plays happen while you're just fapping in the mid lane still. Like that's an example. And then 1v1 you also get killed very easily by a lot of champions. Like a Kassadin will one-shot you for free and kill you easily. Ari, Aurelia, Akshan will also win early game. Jace will also win. Zed will also kill you pretty easily. Like Twisted Fate will outroam you. So those are the champions that I don't like because they lack mobility. They lack the wave play in the early game. And then even in the late game, yes, Seraphine is pretty good in the late game because of her team fighting potential. But get into the late game before the other mid laner snowballed you already. That's the main issue. And they are pretty easy to kill. Like Orianna or Ziggs have so much more range, so they are very hard to kill in comparison to a Seraphine or Sona. But yeah, let's move on to ADCs. Let's see it. Okay, it was working. ADCs! Vayne is still broken as fuck. I hate this champion. Vayne Lulu is the most disgusting bot lane combo that wins no matter what. Vayne Lulu just wins no matter what. Vayne has too much damage, too much mobility. She is my most hated ADC champion because she is the hardest ADC champion to kill. She has true damage, and she is the best warrior tank killer as an ADC. Yeah, carry potential is just crazy, especially like with the Yumi or Lulu. Saya is a very safe, soft-peeling ADC that is very hard to kill when she gets ahead because of her ultimate, and then she has decent, like really good utility with the feathers to root people as well. Lucian is very strong early game champion with tons of mobility and does tons of damage. Caitlyn is super solid ADC with tons of range. Kai'Sa, yeah, has a really good complete package where she has mobility, she has the damage, and she has the carry potential at all stages of the game. While, for example, an Ezreal is very, very strong in the late game once you get items, has really good mobility, but his early game is super weak. That's why I just S tier. Draven got nerfed. I think, yeah, some people will say lethal tempo is the rune to go for, but I like to listen to my man Rix Doom. He's a pro player, one of the best ADCs in Europe, and he runs Conqueror, and Conqueror got nerfed. Plus, they nerfed the first ability in the recent patch, so that's why I don't put him S plus anymore. S tier because he's such a strong snowboarding champion, but he's hard to play and make work because he lacks mobility. Yes, he has the second ability, but he doesn't have any dashing abilities. That's what I mean. So even if he gets ahead, if I'm like a fat jungler or I'm a fat baron laner, I'm not that scared. I mean, sometimes I'm scared because some games the Draven is 9k gold and my ADC is 5k gold. Those are like the exceptions. But usually, Draven is more killable than Vayne or Lucian, for example, or Saya. Corki, strong teamfighting champion. His package in teamfighting, especially at Elemental Dragon teamfights, is super good. Very strong poking champion with a lot of utility. Jinx, super snowbody. Like if you get one, like she's very similar to Katarina. You get one reset, you have 3 items, you just wipe the whole team. Jhin is a super early mid-game champion that doesn't have the same carry potential that I wanna see from like Ezreal, Corki, Vayne in the late game. Those champions can carry 1 vs 9 support, but Jhin is easy to kill because he lacks mobility and he doesn't have the same late game damage. So even if a Jhin is fed, I'm like, whatever. Well, we can still kill him pretty easily. But if a Vayne is fed, I'm like, oh shit, man, here we go again. Here we go again. I've lost recently a game. I was 9-1. My Baron laner was 9-1. We have 3 dragons. And we still lost it because Vayne Lulu is too cracked. And it's so hard to kill this champion. While a Jhin is super easy to kill. Tristana, hard to play, early game weak, super strong scaling champion though, but isn't as easy to pull off as Jinx, for example. Ashe, she has good playmaking potential with the ultimate to catch people and catch them, but she just doesn't have the hyper carry damage, and she also doesn't have the mobility. So even if you are strong Ashe catching people, you just don't have the damage, and it's like the main criteria that I have from an ADC is high mobility and high damage in the late game, and don't be too weak in the early game. So like that's one of the downsides about Jhin. Weak late game but strong early game. Ezreal, weak early game but strong late game. So then you have the S plus tier, which have the complete package. Misfortune, for example, lack of mobility, no dashes at all, very easy to kill. Early game, strong, but late game, falls off. Karma APC, actually pretty good right now because of the dragon team fights. She can be very good because she is a utility poking mage. So those champions are actually underrated in solo queue, but people, I think once we reach like high elo or competitive, those picks are very good in competitive. Because you can pick it into the right team comp or into the right team setup. While in solo queue, it's not guaranteed and it's harder to pull off. But in general, those champions are very good for dragon team fights, and dragons have become pretty important right now. So Karma ultimate, Orianna ultimate, Ziggs ultimate, those are very good team fighting champions. A Lux can also be pretty solid as an APC because she has the catch potential with a bind, she has good poking damage, but she kinda lacks the range and the mobility. So, A tier. Brand, Morgana. Brand, main issue that I have with him is lack of mobility and the lack of range in comparison to the other APCs. Morgana on the other hand is lack of damage and lack of wave clear in comparison. She's more like a utility based champion, not a carry champion. And in solo queue you want carry champion. Okay? Senna got nerfed. Oh no, Senna main, stop playing this champion. I think Senna is still decent into the right team comp, into the right team setup. If you pick this champion, you can make her work if you have frontline, and if you play like, for example, Senna Narcissus, Senna Gragas, Senna Galio, you can make her work. And you have like a Jarvan frontline, then yes, she can be decent. But she definitely isn't as strong anymore as like, even in competitive, I think she isn't as strong anymore as before. And in solo queue, it's even worse because people are playing double ADC Senna without the front line. Fuck off, guys. Akshan in the ADC, I don't play this. Play mid lane, play Baron lane. I don't want to see Akshan ADC because he lacks the range and he gets bullied in the early game. I don't like this pick. Same for Veigar, super scaling champion that gets bullied in the lane super hard. Don't play him ADC. Let's move on to supports. Stayed pretty much the same, so I'm gonna quick one this through because I don't know how long we are doing the tier list already, but probably 1 hour. Yuumi, still broken as fuck, super strong. If you have like a Vayne, if you play Lulu, I mean Yuumi with the Vayne. Oh, actually, I think I'm gonna move Lulu. Yes, I move Lulu up. But I think it's more like a duo queue issue, not solo queue issue. I think the main issue with Lulu is in duo queue, she's broken as fuck. Wow. Yuumi with a Vayne, with an Olaf, with a Shyvana, with a Riven, with any hyper carry champions, it's just too strong. Too much healing, too much mobility, and her team fights is crazy. Same for Karma. Too much utility, too much poking damage. And you can carry games as a Karma as well. You don't rely on your ADC too much because you also do a lot of damage. Pyke got buffed, and I think he is super strong playmaking champion into the right team comp. Pick him into the right team comp and he is broken. I think the moment we are like solo queue, full challenger solo queue mode, or like a full challenger lobby in high-low, I think Pyke is going to be one of the best picks then. He has insane playmaking potential. It's crazy, especially in solo queue. I think he's very underrated. Nautilus is a strong, solid, tanky champion with tons of utility and playmaking potential. Same for Thresh. Thresh roaming, he has insane playmaking potential to carry games. Same for Rakan. Super strong early game and team fighting champion. Same for Alistar, a tanky beast with a lot of playmaking potential at every stage of the game. Same for Gragas. I mean, the explanation is a strong early game roamer that can carry and snowball on the map and impact. Then in team fights, you're also very good with all of the utility you have and the catch potential and the playmaking potential. So those are the criteria why I've put them S tier. Nami, a strong enchanter with a lot of playmaking potential with her bubble, then she has healing, then she has the ultimate for the AoE knock-up, and she is just a very good enchanter and very good in team fighting. Lulu, I don't know if I think the main reason why I put her S tier right now is the amount of times I lose to Lulu Vayne is crazy. Lulu in combination with an Olaf, with a Shyvana, with a Vayne, with Kai'Sa, Saya, Jinx or something. This champion is disgusting because she boosts someone up and that champion becomes a 1 versus 9 god. Yes, I think in duo queue she works the best, but I also think in solo queue, if you tell your teammate, hey, I'm gonna play Lulu, how about you play Vayne? Or go for carry champion. You're like, oh shit, man, the moment you play against that comp. Because the moment Lulu buffs someone, early game, she's like, okay, and then late game, you're like, whoa, shit, man, I get fucking run down by the Olaf or by the Vayne. Lulu's enchanting powers are just too good, actually, in solo queue. Leona, Galio, Braum are good playmaking champions, but I don't think they are as good as a Thresh, Rakan, or an Alistar, because they're kind of situational, while Braum is good against poking champions because of his shield. He doesn't have the insane AoE combos that are like Rakan, low cooldown, Alistair, and Thresh. While he has the global ultimate, he has like the AoE ultimate, sure, but it's on cooldown, while they have way shorter cooldowns to make plays happen at every stage. In the early game as well, while Braum isn't as strong as them in the early game as and in team fights. Rakan with a AoE knockup and then taunt as well. Alistair with a AoE knockup and super tanky. Galio, pretty decent, but doesn't have the same team fighting potential as those champions. And he's more situation where you want to pick him into AP team comps, because he has the magic damage reduction on his second ability. Leona single target stun, for example, only. But Leona is pretty good against some enchanters and some ranged champions because of the third ability to catch them. Soraka got buffed. I think they buffed the AP ratio, but I don't think she is A tier. Like, they nerfed her so much that she doesn't feel as strong anymore. And she's a very situational pick where you want to pick her into the right team comp, where you have enough frontline to make her work. Lux. Lux is a decent poking champion in the early game. Kinda relies on having enough frontline to make her work, or go for full poking kiting team comp, then you can make her work as well. But she doesn't have the same carry and playmaking potential than other supports that I've listed here. Annie, for example, is pretty weak in the early game. Like Annie, Sona, Seraphine, they are pretty fucking weak in the early game, and it's very easy to punish them, and they don't have insane playmaking potential at all times. Yes, they can scale and they can become good in team fights, but get to that point. Especially in solo queue. Like, if your teammates are inting, then you have a problem and you won't be able to carry. While those champions, they can carry at every stage. And they have low cooldown. And they're not weak early game. Shen, I don't know, I don't like Shen and Set as a support, because they lack gold and they are not that tanky. And they're weak in the early game. Set is not that weak, but he kind of gets kited, and you can bully him in the early game if you play the laning phase correctly. And he isn't really that tanky as a support. He has good playmaking potential though, but he gets kited against a bunch of matchups. Sinch, pretty weak in the early game, kind of cheesy pick, but you can make it work against some enchanters if you cheese them and catch them. And he has very good scaling and catch potential in team fights. Morgana, weak, very, very weak in the early game, and she doesn't provide as much utility as I want from a support. Senna, like I've already explained Senna in the ADC thing, and it applies for supports as well, where she is a very situational pick and she got also nerfed, so I just think B tier. Like, the amount of Senna players that are trash are like F tier is crazy. Amumu, trash as support. I just want a quick one. I've already, like, I don't know how long I'm talking, like almost 1 hour. Amumu, like I said, shit early game. Ultimate bot only is just too weak. Same for Malphite. Pantheon to snowball reliant. Mundo is just too team comp reliant. Like, he's weak early game, and you need to pick him into the right team comp, or against the right champions. Like against a Blitzkrieg or against a Thresh, he can be good to block the hook, for example. But in general, he doesn't provide anything in teamfights besides being a meat shield without any crowd control. Blitzkrieg is too flippy, and most Blitzkrieg players don't know how to hook. But yeah, that's it for the tier list. I've talked way too long, and I hope I've covered everything and you guys liked the explanation. And if you guys like this in-depth explanation and the tier list, make sure to leave a like and make sure to subscribe so you guys don't miss out on content. But yeah, Kassadin is broken as fuck. Pyke is an underrated hot pick in support in mid lane. And otherwise, in jungle, Shyvana, Olaf are broken as fuck. Jax has become really, really strong. So if you guys want to play a champion that can carry games as a split pusher, then Jax, go for it. And keep abusing Karma and Yumi. Karma and mid lane also very strong. But yeah, that's a bit for the tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I see you next time. Bye bye.
Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.